All right, we're live. Hello, everybody. I am Scott with the Scotch Malt Whiskey Society. Special day today. We're doing a pregame, what we call it, for Rabbie Burns Day of poet Robert Burns, Scottish poet, and that's what I thought was going to happen right there. Hold on, Burns. Mute that. I've got a special guest with me tonight. A lot of you with the American branch of the Scotch Malt Whiskey Society may not have heard of Roy. Roy Duff, he has a YouTube channel named Aqua Vitae. I'll bring him in. Roy and I met through the Scotch Test Dummies channel years ago. Roy is a very prominent YouTuber now, known very well. Him and Ralphie just did a recent online Scotch Whiskey Awards presentation that went very well. When Roy was newer, though, he had a small channel on YouTube, and Bart and I were doing one of our 12 hours of boom segments. We do 12 shows in a row, 45-minute segments, and we had met Roy. We'd talked to him a few times, and we said, Roy, you're in Scotland. Why don't you come on one of our 45-minute episodes of the 12 hours of boom and let everybody know who you are? And Roy said he kind of questioned it. He didn't know. He said, I don't know if I can talk for 45 minutes. I don't know what I have to talk about. Needless to say, Roy goes on now. He's well known. He does 3 to 4 hour live streams. They're big hits. He's in Glasgow, Scotland. I'll welcome him in. Roy, good evening.
Hello, buddy. Hello. Thank you so much. Yes, it's incredible to think about that, isn't it? Back in it, where you had to convince me to join you live. I was like, oh no, I can't do that. I can't do it. There's nothing to talk about. Yes, and now I can't keep it less than 2 hours. Anyway, thank you so much. I remember, by the way, when I joined that show, you quadrupled my subscriber count.
Yeah, that's
because the channel was a couple of hundred or something. It was just there was nothing. It was really small. And thank you for your trust.
Yes.
I'll never forget it. Thanks, buddy. It's nice to be here with you tonight, or this morning, should I say?
Well, yeah, and a few comments already. People talking about the time difference and what we're eating and stuff like that. But yeah, it's 1 a.m. for you.
Yep.
So you stayed up late just to join us.
Yes.
Now the goal is we decided to call this a pregame for Burns Night. So tomorrow, Tuesday, January 25th, is the official Burns Night or Robert Burns Day celebrations. We thought, let's take our show the night before. It won't be formal. We'll talk about Robert Burns. We'll talk about kind of the history, the traditions, what people going to an actual celebration tomorrow may see, what to expect, things like that. And you're in Glasgow, so naturally you've had a lot more involvement in these things than I have. But still, you don't consider yourself a Robert Burns expert.
Absolutely not. Absolutely not. In fact, when you suggested that I join you here tonight, I kind of tried to encourage you to. I proffered a few names and suggested other people that might be far better placed than me to talk about our national bard, Rabbie Burns. But I think that, honestly, as I started to think about it, Scott, I think there's probably, it's not that there's two camps, but there's probably two extremes. You've got people that are really into poetry. They're into maybe their albophiles. They're really into Scottishness and things. And they really love Robert Burns. They love all of his work, and perhaps they can recite it and things. There's a real passionate following. But there's also, and I would consider myself in this camp, people that really just enjoy Burns Night because it allows us to kind of wallow in Scottishness for a night.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember a time when I was really young. I mean, Scottishness it was maybe something that you celebrated at New Year's at Hogmanay. It seems to have grown for us to celebrate the Scottishness and celebrate Burns and things like that. So it's kind of nice on the 25th of January every year, in order to try and get people together and have a bit of fun trying to recite poetry in Old Scots, a language that we don't really speak anymore, a dialect we don't really use anymore, but have a go at it anyway, have fun, share the traditional fare, remind ourselves how delicious vegetables and haggis actually is, and obviously have a few glasses of whiskey at the same time, and comfort yourself and know that actually being Scottish is kind of fun. So that's kind of what Burns Night means for me now, honestly. I couldn't recite anything. I could read it. I could have a go at reading it perhaps. But Burns Night for me is just a kind of a gathering, and a nice reason to feel that it's okay to celebrate Scottishness. I don't know if that makes any sense.
No, no, absolutely, yeah. So let's do talk though. I have our USA exclusive bottling that we did for Burns Night.
Yes.
I'll put the ticker on here for it. Now this was a lottery drawing, so this is not available. If you were one of the lucky people that did get this is cask 9.224 Harvest Hayride Happiness. I don't know if it'll come in there or not.
Yeah, there it is now. Yep. Harvest Hayride Happiness.
In
14
our
years.
spicy and sweet flavor profile, a 14-year-old Speyside, 61.7% from a first fill ex-bourbon barrel.
Wow.
Now, I've had this open. It's gotten some air. I have not had a dram. I wanted to save it for the show. So you have something similar, though, as well?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I've got two here. I've got one in the glass already. I've actually got more than two. As we were getting ready beforehand, I picked out quite a few. But I've got one that I can uncork a wee bit later tonight because I think this has been sitting on the shelf for long enough. And it might be nice to uncork this one. It's a distillery that this is number 48. We don't get to enjoy very much. Thankful for bottlers like SMWS for us to be able to try some interesting distilleries from time to time. 7387 is the one that's in the glass right now, which is a Speyside, first fill Spanish oak PX butt. Now it's 14 years old. I can't imagine that it spent the entire 14 years in that first fill butt. So it's probably some kind of finish, but it's 59.5%, and it's very full on, very sweet, lots of syrup and dried fruits, delicious. I think the one that you're about to pour might be a bit lighter. So I have an official bottling from distillery number. What's the distillery number?
Oh, 9?
Yes, I've got an official one, so I can sip along. And if you share your notes, I'll see if there's anything in there we can discover. But I will sip it in my official SMWS glass. I picked this up as the Glasgow venue opened in 2020. Unfortunately, it opened just days before the COVID lockdown started, which was a real shame because it's a gorgeous little venue that they have in Glasgow. And it's obviously been a place that it's been difficult to visit in recent times, but I'm still a member, and it's still a privilege to go across to Bath Street when I can and try all of the bottles that you're going to be talking about by the glass. I guess that's tricky in the States, right? How many? You have member or partner bars, I guess, right?
Yeah, I'm not even sure where our numbers are at there now. So
yeah, that's a nice thing to do. You remember how when we visited the vaults when you were here, right, Scott?
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Very nice. And I had haggis there first time. Haggis there at the vault.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
Liked it. I had it a couple times that trip. So yeah.
Yeah, it didn't.
I do wish we had some haggis tonight. I kind of thought about ordering an American dish that goes about the same way. They're called Rocky Mountain oysters, which I have had and like. I don't know. Do you know what those are, Roy?
No idea. No, tell us more.
They're a certain reproductive part of a cow, or I mean a bull. A bull is a male.
Right. Okay. Got you.
Yes.
Hence the oysters.
Yeah.
I mean, I think haggis. If I understand well, haggis has a reputation in America. I think that people have this idea that it's full of really bad ingredients and things. And certainly, it's definitely peasant food. It was made from all the bits that you didn't want to use as a cut, or didn't have a specific purpose elsewhere. So it was all the leftovers. It was the offal, OFFAL. And so you're speaking about lungs and heart, liver, all the kind of gross things. But that's every sausage from every country that's ever, you know, f- you know, eaten an animal. That's happened. So think of chorizo in Spain, or salami, or bologna from Italy, or German sausage. Everybody, and you guys. I guess that you wouldn't want to examine what's in a hot dog, right?
Right. Well, and Gregor is tuning in. Time for a dram, but he says haggis is not anything close to uh, Rocky Mountain oysters. Yeah, I know. I just meant it's kind of that part of the animal that most people don't think about eating. But
Yes. I mean, I don't. Perhaps in haggis they maybe occasionally as a bit of that. I don't think so though. I think it's more to do with the lights. They call it lites. The bits that, and it's also heavily spiced, and it's mixed with oatmeal or oats. So there's a kind of grainy texture to it. It's drier than you might imagine. Um, it's fun to pour a sauce over it. It works well with a cream sauce, a whiskey sauce, a pepper sauce. Sometimes you just pour a dram right over the top of the haggis, which can be good fun as well. Um, so it's not. I think that when you get people to try it, they're almost sometimes a wee bit let down because it's actually just quite a tasty thing. It's a
yeah, pretty good.
savoury, nice, hearty meal. It's not. It's not really anything particularly challenging, right? So I remember that you tried a haggis when you were over. It was good to have you trying it firsthand. But I think the best thing about it was when you were offered a menu when you were up north in Inverness, and you chose
Mhm.
haggis from the menu. So that tells you that you enjoyed it the first time. You weren't just being polite.
Absolutely. Yeah. I was really impressed with the food overall in both Ireland and Scotland. It's so fresh.
Yeah.
It
You,
did.
you did have complaints about the ketchup, but we won't talk about that.
There's so much junk in a lot of our American foods, but all the Scottish food and the Irish food, all the restaurants and everything we did, it was always just it felt fresh and just natural, I guess you could say.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I think we ate quite well on the trip when you were over.
Yeah.
And of course, if you're traveling and you do decide to book a table and eat in a restaurant, you're hoping for a decent food.
Yeah.
I think I made you chili when you were here, which is not particularly Scottish, but it was something that I could make in advance and warm up for efficiency.
That was good.
Um,
You bet.
yeah. So I mean, what you have to do, Scott, is you have to do the next thing now is that you have to be in Scotland for 25th of January, and you can witness the ceremony. You can witness people gathering and dressing formally. Some people do like to don the tartans or whatever it may be. Maybe just a wee tartan bow tie is enough. Something just to feel kind of, like I say, Scottish. And go to an event and where you're actually going to have a piper. You're going to have somebody who's going to play the role of a kind of master of ceremony, and he's going to bring in that he's going to pipe in the haggis. The haggis will be brought into the room on a big tray with a knife, or commonly called a ski and do, is the name of the knife, and they bring it into the top table and kind of make a big fuss about the whole thing. We did a mini version of that. Obviously, there's not a lot of events happening yet in Scotland. Big events are looking like they're on the horizon. But it was still quite a muted thing. On Saturday night, we went down to Friends, and the host there, he did that. He he addressed the haggis, and he got out his knife, and he read out the address to haggis, and he cut it open and things. We had good fun, and we had it absolutely traditionally. We had it with potatoes mashed, neeps, turnips. I think you call the turnips that we would have with haggis, you call them, I'm going to pronounce this wrong, I think you call it rutabaga.
I don't know on that one.
It's a big, heavy, solid root vegetable, about the size of a small ball, and you boil it, you mash it up. Maybe if you want to be a bit opulent, you add a little bit of cream or something. Certainly you need butter and salt, and you mash it, and it's really quite a sweet root vegetable. It's fantastic. And that's exactly what we had. We had that at the weekend, and it's marvelous. You feel very full and satisfied after it all. Mark Broda's in. Now, Mark Broda, when he was in SMWS at the Vaults, I made him try a forkful of haggis, and it wasn't so successful. And he's suggesting it's high time I address the haggis for you all. Well, what I could probably do a wee bit later, Mark, is I could attempt to read the address to haggis out, but it's 1 a.m. in the morning. It's after 1 a.m. here, so there's not a lot of haggis around. And we had our Burns night on Saturday night. So tomorrow night, tomorrow night's the haggis night.
Last year was it last year or 2 years ago, you did a live stream for Burns Night, and you had haggis, and we should have thought ahead and got a little video clip from that, but you had a photo, I think, of the haggis, didn't you?
Well, yeah, I mean, I could share. Can I share my screen? Can I do that? I could probably bring up, I've got a still, and if I could do a screen share.
Does it let you on your end? I'm not sure.
I think so, yeah. Share. I mean, it's not a particularly large image. Let's try and make it a little bit bigger so that you can see. Can you see that, Scott, at your side? There you go. So I'm actually going back to, I think this was probably 2018, early 2018. So you can see the mashed potato and the yellow mash at the back is the neeps. And I have a haggis here that I've just cut open, and I'm pouring the whiskey over the top. I did that on a live stream. I didn't read out the entire address to a haggis. I think I might have just done 1 or 2 verses, just because the 25th landed on the Thursday night that I was going live. And it was kind of good fun. I don't know. It was back. That was back when the VPub wasn't even called the VPub.
Yeah.
So it would have been quite quiet. Not nearly as many folk in as we get these days, but it was good fun. It was good fun to do it, and yeah, I should maybe consider doing it again.
So yeah, anybody going tomorrow night, or a lot of people they're going to have bagpipes playing. There's going to be some recital, poems, verses from poems, things like that going on with each course of the meal. Now, I did see that most of the meals will start with a soup, and one of the soups that is used is Cullen skink, which I had at Ardbeg at their visitor center.
Yes, a good place to have it. Yeah. And I think, did you have Cullen skink at my encouragement? Probably.
Probably, yeah. I didn't know what it was. I'd never heard of it. So,
I mean, you have similar things in the States, maybe made from different ingredients and things. It's just this idea of quite a really rich soup. But we would make it we would start with butter and leeks. So maybe instead of onions, you would use butter and leeks. And the traditional fish would be a smoked haddock to use. But it's a fish soup, so you can mess around a little bit and add other things if you like, but the traditional one would be smoked haddock. And you try and keep the dish as white as possible. So as well as the soup stock, You're going to add some milk, maybe. Maybe you're going to make it even richer and maybe add a little bit of cream at the end. And it's a meal. It is a meal that there's, especially if you keep, you add potatoes too. So if you keep the potatoes so that you can actually eat them, and the fish is a big enough piece of fish that you can actually get a chewing action going on, and it's not just drinking soup, right? It's much more hearty. Like you guys, I think you call it chowder. I think you have chowders and things. Oh, you've muted. Have you gone mute, Scott? Hope it's not my side. Oh, please don't let it be me that's muted. Me and my audio issues. No, you're not back yet. I can see you speaking, but I don't.
Testing. There we go.
There we go. Okay, you're back.
We had some echo kicking in, so I made a little adjustment, and I made the wrong adjustment.
Well, you definitely got the echo cured.
Yeah. No, I was gonna say, New England. It was very similar. It reminded me kind of a New England clam chowder along those lines, which I love. So. Ben is tuning in. He says Scott is muted, but Peachwood is not.
Good to see you, Ben.
And Eric Waite, the sniper, tuning in. A lot of people tuning in. So
Eric is saying that he's getting an echo as well. There's no echo at my side. It's maybe you.
We had one. That's when I made an adjustment, and then it was the wrong adjustment. But we should be good now.
Hopefully, we're all right. Yeah. Eric Waite. Also, I forced haggis on Eric when he was here in the UK, and he is actually a fan. I think he really quite enjoys it too. I think if you have to kind of, there is a mental shift, and if you've been programmed to consider it as a scary thing, which I think is part of the marketing of the thing, to be honest, then it might be something that intimidates, and you might not like it. But I think it's one of the very few meals actually that our entire family can enjoy. All the kids, they're happy to eat it. The parents and every guest that you bring into the house, everybody's happy to sit down and eat the stuff. So I encourage you to try it.
Donner Pass Whiskey is asking, what's the soup called? Need to get some in May when I hope to be in Scotland. That's
fantastic. Tim, I'll type it in. I'll type in the spelling.
Yep. Cullen skink.
Cullen skink. And a Cullen is smoked haddock, and Cullen skink is just smoked haddock soup. It's quite a thick soup, but it's fabulous, really fabulous. Can haggis be made spicy or add hot sauce in it? It's really, really versatile, Tom, to the point that there's a kind of Indian fusion. There's people in Scotland love Indian food. Indian food's really popular here, so they'll make a pakora from haggis. You can have haggis toasties. So if you imagine it like a cheese toastie or a croque monsieur or whatever, but replace it with haggis. You can add cheese if you want. And I'm actually hungry. I think I might need to go. I might need to go and make some haggis. Jimmy's saying a skink is a lizard, isn't it? Yes, a skink, but it's in the context of old Scots. It's Cullen skink is fish soup.
Daniel is asking if I just flinched while nosing. I didn't mean to flinch, but I was going to talk a little bit here. Some people tuning in, if they've got the Harvest Hayride Happiness, a 14-year-old, the age really shows on the palate on this one, and it's 61.7%, but you'd expect kind of a harsh alcohol bite. It's really, that 14 years has really smoothed it out. There's so many fruit notes in here. Maltiness, creamy, nice palate. I haven't even added water yet. So
this particular distillery for me is very elegant. It's quite an elegant distillery. Light white fruits, apples, pears, often very malty, as you mentioned.
Honey, yeah, all those light citruses. I was going to throw some raspberries in there, a raspberry lemon tart. If that is that such a thing, a lemon tart.
Oh, absolutely. Raspberries, lemons sound perfect to me.
Yeah.
And it is creamy on the palate, maybe even a kind of little runny honey element to it.
Yeah.
I'm not drinking the same dram as you, but I'm drinking a similarly aged, similarly matured product. Just what we could get. What I meant to ask you, Scott, actually is, a cask can only, especially if it's ex-bourbon, it can only yield about, I don't know, 180, 200 bottles or whatever it may be. Is SMWS, do they have specific casks released in the States that are different from what we have here in Europe?
Well, I mean, as far as like this one was a USA exclusive. So, I mean, like as far as that goes, being, yeah. Now, what is the percentage or how many? I don't know.
Yeah.
But, yeah, because this Burns Night bottle in the Harvest Hayride was a US exclusive, and all the bottles went in the States. I believe it was over 200. I want to say. I think there was like 210 or 220.
So all of them went to you guys. You got them all. For that.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's one of the challenges that anybody doing single cask whiskey is going to have is how do they spread the distribution, right? I think we have to perhaps accept the fact that it just doesn't spread that thin. Right? Charlene Thompson is saying that I get almost a marshmallow nose from the Harvest Hayride.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of vanillas and sugars, the malt, slight oaks, citruses, light citruses, like you said, pears, oranges, apples. I would even throw in some grapes. Very nice.
I tend to find that the more you enjoy whiskey, I think the more you're drawn to more subtle whiskeys. Do you find that? Do you find that you're?
I mean, I think you have to have certain expectations going into, like, this is a 14-year-old ex-bourbon barrel. So, what's your expectations? What notes should you be looking for? What should you find with that kind of compared to a 14-year-old that's been in a ex Oloroso hogshead? I think you have different expectations. And with a 14-year-old ex-bourbon barrel, you kind of know, there should be some citruses, some fruits, some vanillas, malty, along those lines. So and then how does it do? How does it hit the palate? How's the finish and all that? So.
Yeah. I mean, I think that I poured this early as we started. This is the 7387, but this one's from a PX butt, actually from Spanish oak as well. So this is grabbing your attention. It's really quite loud and bold. Yeah. Whereas this one that I've poured afterwards to drink along something similar to what you're having is much more delicate, much lighter, much more kind of it's almost takes a wee bit more effort to tug apart, right? You need to search through the complexity of it to try and pick it out. I mean, it's lovely just to sit and enjoy in a social environment, obviously too. But I think as the more I get into whiskey, the more I'm enjoying whiskey, the more I lean on ex-bourbon. I still like to contrast it with PX, Oloroso, peated, whatever it may be, but ex-bourbon is just, it's wonderful.
I think there's even a good argument now for second fill, getting past that first fill bourbon, having a well-aged whiskey in those second fill barrels, really exposing that distillate character and even more, less of the wood influence on it. There's been some really good ones.
Absolutely. And I remember I was involved in a discussion recently, and it was really quite interesting that we talk about refill casks, and we have this idea that it's just the whiskey sucks from the cask, and then it's by the time it's refilled, there's less to give in each refill. But what we need to remember that every fill means that whiskey's in there. So it's not, the previous incumbent is often Scotch whiskey, which is not a bad thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, it's not. And like you say, the distillery character gets a chance to be a wee bit more vocal, which is fabulous at times. And absolutely, if you see refill, or even if you see third fill, fourth fill, or if you hear these, just don't judge.
Yeah.
Enjoy. Time has so much to, and the maturation is not just about subtractive. It's there's also additive things going on there too. That absolutely. And I think one of the most interesting things that happens in America is when you guys get to play around a little bit and use refill casks too. For your malts and things, I think it's a good place to be, where you can be open-minded and not just taste the whiskey, don't judge it by reading what on the bottle what the maturation was. So that's you said that you'd opened that and you've aired it. How is it tasting?
So Tom R had told me to add a dash of water to it to see how it changes. I had put one in there. It was a little congested, I would say, at first till I added water. That helped. That's where I was getting a lot of those notes that I just brought up. If you saw me, I just put in a second dash of water, and that palate has really opened up now. It is so saturating, and the finish is considerably better with the second drop of water here. I'm still high ABV, but it's not near the 61%, coming out of the bottle. But yeah, it became so, that second dash of water really brought those tannins out. That's nice. It's a palateful.
Tom R is suggesting that I drink more bourbon in order to make more wonderful Scotch available. I have to say, Tom, I think the bourbon scene is taking care of itself, right? I think there's plenty bourbon getting consumed. I don't think they've ever known such a boom time. I'm going to open this distillery number 48. And this, I only have one other bottle in my entire collection from this distillery. It's really, really tough to get a hold of outside of indies and even independents such as SNWS. It can be tricky to get this. So let's try it. It's from Speyside. So, and the maturation on this one is, it's a 10-year-old, but this is refill. It's a refill barrel, ex-bourbon refill barrel. It's distilled in 2007. So this has been on the shelf for quite a while, Scott. I probably bought this in 2018.
Oh, really? Yeah. Been sitting there.
So it's been sitting there asking for a reason to open. Oh, wow. So creamy. And the name of this is actually Petals in Porridge. I don't know how much porridge you enjoy, but it's a very Scottish thing.
I had someone comment, and I don't know the answer to this, but cask 41.144. I think we released it. Might have been the first of the month or mid-December. A deep soul.
A deep soul.
But someone had asked me or commented that on the UK's bottle was a sherried soul, was the name of theirs. And I didn't know that we had swapped up names or used different names from maybe an American bottling to a UK bottling.
Yeah, I'm not sure. Do you have 750ml bottles as well?
Yeah.
Wow.
Everything's bigger here in the States, Roy.
Everything's bigger. Yes, of course. It's a requirement. Absolutely.
So yeah, they have had, and I think it may have passed. I know they were looking at, there were some federal regulations that had what the bottle sizes had to be. And I know a while back they were trying to change that, and I thought it was in the works or was going to happen where you could basically have whatever size bottle you needed or whatever the distillery wanted to put out. It didn't have to be a 375 or a 750. You know, if they wanted to do a 500 or a 700 to keep it consistent with the UK, they could.
Well, that's what I heard, that you guys were opening up to imports of 700 ml bottles, and that had started happening. And I think that's going to be quite interesting for a lot of the new distilleries that are coming out and things. SMWS, you guys have already got it covered. You've got 750 glass, you've got 70 CL glass as well. So you can probably cover both options. But it'd be nice for startups not to have to deal with 2 glass sizes, right?
Yeah.
And things. Yeah. Mark is saying, I saw that slight look of jealousy in Roy's eyes. You have 750 ml bottles. Yes. And that's what is that, 2 ounce more, isn't it? It's quite a significant difference.
Yeah, almost. Yeah.
This is terrific. This one that I've, this Petals and Porridge, very creamy and thick. 10 years old only.
It's got a little lighter color to it, I can see.
It's very pale color wise. Yep.
Yeah.
Very light, like lemon.
Oh wow.
White
Yeah.
wine, Chardonnay. But it's not lacking on the nose, or it's very floral on the nose. So I was expecting something light, but as soon as I had a sip, there's lots of thick, oily creaminess to it. I think this is a worm tub distillery. I think there's worm tub condensers installed at this distillery. In fact, there definitely is. So,
and I don't think I've had anything from, you said that's 40, distillery 46?
48.
Oh, 48.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if I've had anything.
Yeah, it's not common, Scott. I'd be surprised if you tried it. It's really not common. The owners use it for blending. It's this is a nice, I'm glad this is open. This is a nice whiskey. It's dry. I like a dry whiskey. I like when it's dry. It's that kind of you know, sometimes people talk about dry as almost like it's a negative thing, but I actually think it makes it a wee bit moreish. It makes you want to go back and have another wee sip, because it leaves your palate that just ever so slightly dry. Deerstalker, Daniel is shouting Deerstalker. Yeah, this you can buy it as a, but unfortunately Deerstalker is really low ABV, 12-year-old. It's I don't think it's a good representation of what the distillery can make. But this is a good representation of what it can make. This is fantastic.
Good.
So, what have you still got your Burns Night bottling in a glass there?
Yep. Still working on that one. Are you ready to? Or I guess you poured another one. I can grab another one.
Well, if you're going to keep me up till the early hours of the morning, Scott, I'm going to make the most of it, right?
All right. Well, if you're going to make me do that, I've got. How about cask number 24.147, the deepest?
How about some of those darker labeled ones that are just underneath behind you there? There's some. Are any of those open? There's a 12-year-old. Is this one of the new outturns?
New,
is it
what?
Of mahogany.
12-year-old distillery 24. This is ex Oloroso butts and first fill XPX hogsheads.
That sounds a very Scott Bruno dram.
63.3%, and it is, Roy.
Wow. And what age is it?
12.
12. Okay. I mean, it could. I would suggest there's a good chance that that's been filled at higher than 63.5. If the wood is precious, maybe they fill it a wee bit higher at times. Oh my goodness. Yeah, it's dark. You're still a sucker for that profile, aren't you?
Yes, I am.
Yeah.
They're all good though. You know, I'll admit it. I've got them all up here. I've been surprised by some of them. I'll tell you I've had a couple spicy and dry of our profiles that I didn't have high expectations for. They just blew me away.
Yeah. Absolutely. But the variation I mean, when you consider what's in your glass, Scott, is the exact same ingredients that's in mine. It's incredible. It's just, okay, you know, the wood has had a part to play here, maybe some European oak, the previous incumbent, all of these things. But the thing, all that's in your glass is barley and water. All that's in my glass is barley and water. Okay, it's been activated with a bit of yeast and it's been matured in some pretty active oak. But it's incredible, the flavour difference, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yep. You think you'll ever tire of chasing it?
No.
Robbie Burns was a fan too. But I wonder if he just enjoyed drinking the whiskey. I wonder if he could even conceive how crazy we'd all be chasing this flavour 300 years later, right? Because it's such a wonderful thing.
Warren Buff is tuning in. He says, holy smokes, stuck to the Velcro turned me on to the spicy and dry profile. Yeah, that's a good one too. That one sold out. I've got that one back here somewhere too, but yeah, that was a delicious one as well. I think that one was a two Oloroso casking double maturation, if I remember. Ben is still watching, but he says, Scott, I see you're drinking the wood.
Yeah. And there's nothing wrong with it either. Nothing wrong with it.
So I did not realize, and maybe there's a lot of people that don't, but Robert Burns died at the age of 37. He was young.
He never even made it to his 40th birthday. Yeah. And I also heard, now don't quote me on this, but we were, just because it's very topical, we were chatting about it, but infant mortality was terrifying. And I think he had 3 children survive from 9. So he only had only 3 of his children made it out of infancy. And I'm not sure that all of those children were the same woman, because he had a bit of a reputation too. But yeah, it's quite incredible to consider that. Can you imagine living in such a time?
Yeah. Well, and that was he died in 1796. The first Robert Burns dinner, or kind of the first celebration they had, was 5 years later. Some friends got together to celebrate, but as much as well known as he is for a poet and the poems that he had written, just imagine if he had, how much would he have written? How well would he be known if he'd lived into his 60s or 70s?
So you think it might have been a factor, or? I think that he was very prolific, and he was, I think he had, despite being physically hampered, I think he had a huge energy. Famously, he got out of farming and he took himself off to do, he was a customs and excise officer. So he would have been responsible for monitoring things like, whiskey, no doubt, at some point in his career. But yeah, he was very, very active. He managed to squeeze a lot into his short life, I think. And I think he was very, very prolific with his works, and he donated huge swathes of it. So it ended up in the hands of people who could potentially preserve it and promote it. I mean, I wonder, I don't know how much fame he actually had while he was alive, but I think he was already celebrated while he was still alive. Famously, if I think about 4 or 5 years ago, there was a TV poll here, and he was voted this Scottish people's favourite Scot. I think just because he embodies that I mean, it doesn't matter where you go. I think most folk are likely to know Robbie Burns, right? Which is quite incredible, because it's not easy to read, despite him being one of the supposedly most accessible Scots poets. It's still not easy to read. You do have to practice and learn a lot of new vocabulary and things. Old Scots is, even for Scottish people, is not particularly easy to understand.
Well, I had the one verse that I read to you earlier, and you said I actually recited it pretty good. Let's see if I can do it again.
Yeah,
So
cool.
most dinners, or some, will be accompanied at first by what's called the Selkirk grace.
Yes,
Is that the correct pronunciation?
absolutely.
It's short, but it says, "Some may meat and cannot eat, and somewhat eat that want it. But we have meat and we can eat, and say the Lord be thanked."
Perfect. And it's about being grateful and recognizing the privilege, the ability to enjoy being alive and tasting and eating. And absolutely. Well done.
That was
Obviously,
that was my rendition anyway. But yeah, so for those going, expect bagpipes, expect music, expect cheers. They even go in. There will be at some point towards the end of the meal, there'll be the host will do an address to the lassies, and kind of in a fun, on a mocking way, or just a fun tribute to the lassies. And then the lassies do a return back to the laddies, basically kind of a rebuttal to the speech given about them.
all very tongue in cheek. Absolutely.
Yeah.
We'll need to get you over for a Burns supper, Scott.
Oh, I'd love to be actually at a Burns supper in Glasgow. Would be awesome.
Yeah, or anywhere. Let's not be picky about the venue, right?
True.
Anywhere, buddy. Anywhere.
Just in Scotland. How about that?
Scotland would be good for no doubt. I think that hopefully, I mean, we keep saying this, don't we? That things are going to start opening up again, and international travel becomes a real thing. Have you got an eye on maybe crossing the Atlantic?
No, I mean, with COVID, there's just been so many things up in the air. Nothing right now, in the books, or really even being penned or looked at. But hopefully soon. I'd love to get back for sure.
Yeah. You enjoyed your time here, didn't you?
Oh yeah, definitely. Yeah. And we only saw a fraction. I mean, we were there for, I think, 7 days.
Yep.
Was it? Yeah, 7 or 8 days. But and our goal, Bart and I's goal at the time, was we just wanted to. We know there's a ton of distilleries. There's a ton of things to see there. We said we want to take it slow, enjoy our time. Let's do one distillery a day, maybe two. Let's not be rushed. We don't want to have to be enjoying ourselves at one place and all of a sudden we got to pack up and get to the next. And between Islay and the Highlands, I think we visited 6 or 7 distilleries, which really, I mean, it was perfect. It was good. There's a lot more distilleries to see. There's a lot more area to see, but a lot of people have watched your Islay video about Islay. And I tell people, I watched it, I've seen pictures, all that stuff. Until you actually set foot on Islay, you just you don't understand it. The air, the magic that's there, the feeling. So Inverness and up in the Highlands was really beautiful too. I really like that area along with Islay. So yeah, but definitely, hopefully get back there sometime and see more.
That's good to hear. I always worry that because of my enthusiasm for it and the way that I talk about how it's affected me and the fun that I've had there and things, that you worry that you're perhaps overselling it a little bit. But I remember when I did pack up, I packed the car at Bunnahabhain. I got everything ready and I walked along to you guys. We'd done what we had to do. The interviews were done. The footage was shot. We did the drone. Everything was done. And I walked along to you and Bart and I said, right, are you ready, guys? Ready to go? And you turned around and said, nope. We don't care if we spend the rest of the day sitting right here.
Get off camera here just a second. This just came the other day. If you remember our tour guide at Bunnahabhain,
Colin,
Colin Stroud, and we had him on our 12 Hours of Boom.
That's
he started
right.
his own YouTube channel.
Yeah.
Called Attic Whiskey.
Yeah.
But that day we were at Boonahaven and we interviewed I'm drawing a blank on his name.
Billy Sinclair.
Billy on the pier out there at the Boonahaven distillery. They had the Boonahaven flags were flying on the pier that day.
What a star.
One of those flags that was flying that day we were there. It's a little weather tattered, but
fantastic. Well, that was probably when Bart sat in the chair, right?
Yeah.
He tore it.
Colin sent that along to me, though. I was very appreciative of that. So.
Oh, what a star. What a star. And I always joke from that day. I've always joked that, Scott, you left a little bit of your heart there on the northeast of Isla. You have to go back and collect it.
Yep, for sure.
What will actually happen is you'll go back and just leave another little piece behind as well. but that was good times. It was a good trip, a good visit, and I think a highlight. And going to the Tomatin and getting welcomed at Tomatin and moving on from Inverness into Speyside and McAllen and Ballindalloch and
now has Ballindalloch got a release out yet?
No, they're still teasing us. There is a distillery tomorrow that's releasing tomorrow on the Bard's birthday, Loch Lee. But Loch Lee are actually distilling on a site where Robert Burns farmed. He lived on the site for a number of years at Loch Lee, and so they have a direct connection with Burns. So I think they were going to release a bottle last year, but they had some delays, so they decided to postpone it, and it's worked out quite well. I think they're going to release tomorrow. But Ballindalloch, we don't know what's happening there yet.
They should be getting close.
I think they're already 8 years distilling, right? Or 7 years, 8 years, something like that. They've been distilling a long time. When that comes out, it's going to be almost a daft mill. It's going to be quite a mature whiskey.
Yeah. I know they're looking at a lot smaller releases, though, too. I mean, they're not looking at I think a big release for them is going to be 1,500 bottles, probably.
Yeah. Well, I hope that because we've had so much time that they're able to make a big enough release for it not to be a fight to get a hold of it. That's what you have to hope. I'm just I'm replying to Eric Evanson, who's reminding. Do you remember what happened with the phone? He's talking about you leaving your heart when I left my phone. Yes, it was smashed into smithereens. I had a lot of I was organizing and doing a lot. I was trying to do too much. I left the phone on the roof of the car and drove away.
That was when we stopped to film the sunset just outside of Beaumont.
That's right. It was Loch and Dal. Gorgeous sunset. Coming back, we had a great day. Pull over, try and take some photos. Put the phone on the roof of the car. Get the good cameras out. Pack away. Drive away. Forget the phone.
Oops.
Okay.
Then we went to Lagavulin the next day, which is where we took the picture. But we had to bring the ship. What's it called?
The ferry?
Ferry. It's drawing a blank. Brought the ferry back. We're cruising towards Inverness to go to the Highlands, and we stop in Oban, where you got it repaired. And we had to stop at we got a little coffee break and some pastries there, I believe.
Yep. Yeah.
That's a neat little town too, on the water, sitting right there.
Absolutely. And you could look up and you could kind of get a glimpse of where the distillery was situated there, and but we didn't have time to stop by, and because we had to get up to Inverness. Pretty smart. But it's nice when the kind of serendipity kicks in and you get these little incidental places that you can visit and things, and not everything's scheduled. I think you did it the right way when you were here. Treat it, like you're going to be back again. Don't try and cram everything in, right?
Yep. Hit a few of your spots, and the next time plan a few more. So
exactly that. Exactly. And I need to get myself over to Kansas, perhaps.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Not too far from Austin. You've been to Austin a couple of times.
Yeah. Well, that's what I should do. I should have a stop off. I should have a
Yeah. All right, well, let's wrap it up for our Burns night pregame. I think, Roy, you'd printed off some poems or something? Did you want to try to end with a verse?
no.
No?
Well, I think I'll give it a go, but as long as everyone understands that, it's just, yes, I'll try, but know that I'm reading it from a page. And while all of these words and things are familiar to me, every time I hear it, it's also delivered in a slightly different rhythm and things, but I'll give it a go. Shall we? Will we do Address to the Haggis, Scott?
Yeah.
So this is what you're going to hear. So if anybody, after the Selkirk Grace and everything, and after what Scott's been talking about, all the pageantry and ceremony and things, when it gets to the point where you're actually just about to serve the meal, the haggis is served. I mean, it's in traditionally a sheep's stomach, but in modern times it's synthetic. And all the meat, all the spice, all the savory, all the oats and things is in this casing. And you take this knife and you cut the casing open, and this is the address that you would read as you're serving the haggis or addressing the haggis. So this is Burns's Address to a Haggis. I'll get up and close to the mic, shall I? Fair fa your honest sonsy face, great chieftain of the puddin race, aboon the ma you tak your place, pench, tripe, or therm. Well are ye worthy o' a grace as lang as my arm. The groaning trencher there ye fill, your hurdies like a distant hill, your pin wad help to mend a mill in time of need, while through your pores the dews distill like amber bead. His knife, see rustic labour dight, and cut ye up wi' steady sleight, trenching your gushing entrails bright like ony ditch. And then, oh what a glorious sight, warm, reekit, rich. Then horn for horn, they stretch and strive, deal tack the hindmost on they drive, till their weird, swallowed kites believe, and bent like drums, the auld guidman maist like to rive, bethankit hums. Is that their or is French ragout, or olio, wad staw a sou, or fricassee wad make her spew, wi' perfect scunner? Looks down wi' sneering, scornful view, on sick a dinner. Poor devil, see him o'er his trash, as feckless as a withered rash, his spindle shank and gidwhip lash, his neave a knit. Through bloody flood or field to dash, oh how unfit. But mark the rustic, haggis fed, the trembling earth resounds his tread, clap his wally neave a blade, he'll make it whistle, and legs and arms and heads will sned like taps o' thistle. Ye powers wa mak mankind your care, and dish them out their bill of fare. Auld Scotland wants nae skinking ware that joups and luggies. But if ye wish her grateful prayer, gie her a haggis. There you go.
I think we can close it out on that. Thank you, Roy. It was beautiful. Well done.
Sláinte, folks.
Sláinte.
Enjoy your Burns night.
Yep. Cheers, everyone. Thanks for tuning in.
Cheers.